Hey guys, John here. So today's video is more so about freeform sound design as opposed to making a specific type of patch. Now, there's kind of two ways to go about these kind of things, right? So let's say you're working on a track, you might want to make a bass or a pad or a pluck or whatever type of sound it really is. Then you go and start making it. Now, that's great, and there's always times to do that. But you should always do freeform sound design where you're kind of just experimenting, you're practicing your instrument, right? Because a synth at the end of the day is just like any other instrument, whether it be a guitar, a bass, a didgeridoo, who knows what it is, right? So the whole concept is just kind of put your headphones on or turn your speakers on and just turn some knobs and start making stuff because a lot of the times you're going to stumble upon weird combinations of knobs or waveforms or whatever it is, and you'll kind of end up inadvertently to a place where you probably never would have gotten to before, right? There was one time I was trying to make, I think it was like an FM bass or some weird kind of thing like that. And I ended up making a banjo. And I've talked about that before. And it was a really cool experience because if someone said before that, hey, make a banjo, I'd be like, oh God, okay, let me figure this thing out. And I probably wouldn't have arrived at the same conclusion as I did had I just been doing free form or making a bass or something like that. So the whole point is practice your instrument. That's kind of what we're going to be aiming for today. So let's go to menu, initialize. So we start off at the same spot if you're also with Avenger. Now, keep in mind, whatever expansions that you do have, there's also a lot of stuff that comes with them. So that means wavetables, samples, multi-samples, a lot of cool stuff, even just freeform shapes and stuff like that. So don't just look at the presets, but look at all the ingredients that comes with it, right? Think of it like a kitchen, you can get a lot of different entrees, but how those entrees are made with all those different ingredients, you get those too. So keep that in mind. So for this, let's say we'll do something with the wavetable. And then, for me personally, I think some of my favorite ones are from the synthwave categories. I really hope there's a 5 at some point. That would be really cool. But yeah, let's go to synthwave 4 and we can just kind of go through these different wavetables. Like they say, ask not what sound you can make, ask what sound can make you, right? A little philosophical there. But anyway, one of my favorites here that I've kind of used in some other patches was this DS8 phased uni. Just has a cool sound to it. So let's select this guy if you have this expansion. If you don't, pick another wavetable, kind of the same process here. So you have something kind of like that, right? So initially for me, I would say this is a little too fast. So maybe let's slow this down a bit. Because that slow morphing, there's just something pleasing about that. And maybe release this a little bit here. So even up there is kind of nice. Let's bring it up an octave here. Maybe 2. See, this almost kind of sounds a little metallic-y, maybe bell-ish, somewhat like that. So whatever kind of spot we're kind of carving out, right? We're kind of just carving things and adding more, and it kind of just becomes what it becomes. So here maybe, I don't think I'm going to do much with the low end, so I'm going to slap an EQ on this bad boy, and then maybe, I don't know, I guess just high pass it to a certain amount. Yeah, something like that might be kind of fun. And then maybe I might do some compression. We'll see what happens with that. But initially, we can do a lot of interesting stuff already. So one thing I love doing, especially in Avenger, is on the spread knob, we can turn this to the right and it's going to alternate between the speakers, right? Pretty self-explanatory. However, if we go to the left, we're going to get a random effect of that. So we kind of don't really know where it's going to be in the stereo field. So there's no set direction, which is kind of nice. It gives it that unpredictability, and it also makes the patch a little bit larger. You know what I'm saying? We want it big, guys. We want it big. Or average. That's fine, too. Okay, so we have something kind of like this here. And maybe for the filter, what might be kind of cool is maybe putting some motion on this, maybe with an LFO. So let's drag and drop this guy here and giving it a little bit of depth. It might be a little bit slow, so let's unsync this here and kind of just find the spot for it. Maybe Let me bring this down just a little bit, just a slight effect here. And maybe fade it in as well. What's also nice to do is, so since we're doing this kind of modulation effect on the filter, yes, we're using the envelope and also an LFO. Now, if we want another filter just to kind of tie things in a little bit together, we can do that. Let's add another filter. Let's go to our routing tab, add another filter here. So now this one's going to kind of act as our catch-all filter. And on the filter one for this kind of patch, there's something I really like about the Nexus Low Pass 12. Makes the high end, I guess, I don't know how to describe it. It makes it really nice. Okay, so that's kind of cool so far. So let's say if we add some unison here. Now with the LFO, let me see, if I go back to this guy, maybe we could slow it down. And this is the kind of the things where you'll start modulating things and it sounds interesting at first, and then you're like, maybe let's pull back on it or change it. And that's okay. You could spend like 10 minutes doing some intricate modulation. And if it doesn't fit the patch, you're not at really a loss or a negative. I would say you're actually more in a positive because you did that. You implemented that feature, whatever it is you wanted to do. And even though it didn't work out, you still got the practice, you still got the repetition and so on and so forth. So maybe for this guy, we can maybe adjust it a little bit. And we can slow it down, set this on free running, and even maybe for this shape, maybe we can do something kind of like this, like a random smooth. Might be a little bit fast for this kind of sound, so let's make it a little bit slower. Okay, so now we're kind of getting into some dreamy stuff. Maybe increase the release a little bit and slow down the attack. It's a little too pointy. Okay, so that's kind of cool. I think now we could maybe start adding some effects here. So I'm going to leave this slot here blank for now, maybe for compression or something like that. So on the next one down, let's go to a delay, and a trick I always love doing for a lot of sounds. I don't know, I just like how it comes out. But for our timing, let's select 1/8 dotted, and then let's add another delay. And this one's going to be a quarter note. And then for both, I mean, we are high passing it, so it doesn't really matter. But in case we send other oscillators to this effects one stack, it might be a good idea to cut off some of that low end. We might not need it. So yeah, something to think about. And we can probably bring up our delays a little bit more in the mix. Like that pattern that it makes there with the delays is always really nice. Add a little bit more of this here. And maybe also bring out some of the high end, maybe 7K or something like that, so we don't have all of that. So that one might be kind of cool. Now, one thing I'm thinking now too is every time we hit a note, if you notice, we're starting on the same spot of the wavetable. So maybe we want that, maybe we don't. It's kind of really, I guess, up to us what we want to do. So what if we did something kind of like this, where every time we hit a note, or, you know, maybe it's just random or it's just always moving. That would be also kind of interesting in that sense. Or we could even just disable this and use this wavetable not necessarily as a motion thing, but as a random waveform every time we do that. So let's take a listen and see what that sounds like. We might like it, we might not. So let's go to this LFO, and let's go to the random square, and let's drag and drop this here, and let's keep this bipolar, right? So we don't want to offset this to make it unipolar, because then we're just going to use this side right to the right. So let's bring this maybe somewhere in the middle-ish, something kind of like that. And then let's bring this to bipolar. So now we're going to get both sides and give it some depth here. So that might be kind of a cool option as well for you. We can do that as well, or we can go into add it in here. Maybe we can go into something like the math category, and maybe let's go random bipolar A. Let's select this right here. And for LFO2, let's turn this off right now so it's not moving here. And let's drag and drop this guy onto this knob. So here it's still random, but it's going to change every time we hit a note, and it's going to stay at that note. Whereas the random LFO is going to constantly be changing like this here. So they're both random, two different ways to get there. Really depends on what you want to go with. I'm going to leave both of them here. I'm just going to disable this for now because maybe we want to come back to that. And that's the cool part as well about using a wavetable, because yeah, we can morph through it. It sounds great. It's awesome. But we have a table of all sorts of different waveforms that kind of fit together in their own world. They're kind of sonically related somewhat, right? They're part of their same family, essentially. So if we're building a patch on that, we can just choose a random waveform every time we hit a note within range, right? We can kind of, depending on this depth right here, if we have it really small, something like 1 here, the variety isn't going to be too much, as opposed to if we did something really crazy like over here. These waveforms are all going to look pretty different. But that's the process of it, because you want it to sound different, and that's kind of a cool thing about it. So we have our delays. And then maybe we can bring our sustain down a little bit for our amp. Maybe a little bit more decay here. Let it breathe a little bit. Okay, so we have some delays here. Maybe we can add something else, like maybe the root, of course. I've really fallen in love with this one. And the default preset's actually pretty cool. Let's check out some other ones here. It's kind of cool. And maybe for this first LFO, since we're doing the random thing, I kind of don't really want it to go behind here. So I guess in this case, we can bring the offset to the right, making this a unipolar LFO. So it's kind of working in tandem with the envelope too. And I guess once we're at this stage, we can almost kind of simulate what it would be like as an ARP. So we can turn the ARP, bring our sustain down. And I love the setting here where we go to 2 octaves, and then for the mode, I always love the alternate 2. But I don't know if an ARP is right for this kind of patch. And again, we tried this thing here, so maybe we can disable our ARP, bring back our sustain a little bit. And we have something kind of like that. So for now, let's go to, I suppose, maybe let's add some reverb here. The root reverb is always a nice choice. So let's go to Abyss here and add some shimmer. I love the shimmer for this. So that might be kind of a cool thing as well. So something to think about. So let's try another one here. Let's go initialize. Let's erase all that. And you don't have to always save them. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But the important part is to kind of get that practice in. So again, let's go to a saw. Let's go, and maybe instead of a wavetable, maybe we can go something with a sample. That might be kind of interesting. And let's go back to the Synthwave 4. I just love this pack. That might be kind of interesting. Interesting sound right there. Okay, that's a kind of a cool sound already just with a bass. So like you have a sample, you're kind of pretty close to the way there. In this case, maybe let's say we want to, I don't know, add EQ and then maybe go for some compression. So for this guy, I mean, it already sounds pretty good. I kind of maybe would just want to add a little bit more low end to it. And for compression, generally like an 8-to-1-ish. Okay, so we have something kind of like that here. Maybe a bass arp. Kind of fast here, so maybe let's bring down our tempo a little bit. That's getting kind of cool. Okay, so we have something kind of pretty close like this. Maybe we can bring out the output a little bit. And like I said, the waveform's kind of already done. We're kind of just doing a little enhancements, EQ, compression, and something even for low-end bass that I kind of like doing as well is putting a little bit of expander on this guy, bringing the mix down to maybe 15-ish or so, and then taking the low end out. Because it kind of puts it into a room. We're going to A-B this real quick and kind of just listen to the differences here. So with it off, it almost seems like we're still in the computer, but then once we enable this, we're kind of now in a room, it almost becomes real. Right, so something kind of like that. So maybe for this, we can maybe add some delays, but again, take out some of that low end and maybe take out a little bit of that. And then again, I like doing 1/8 dotted. We could do some filtering stuff as well. I mean, we can try it out. Generally, I probably wouldn't because the sample already sounds good. So, I mean, what's the point? You could do something like that. But even then, that's still kind of a cool sound. So what we could do as well, maybe with this right here, and sometimes it's actually a better idea to actually modulate the envelope depth as opposed to the cutoff. So if we had some default like this, it's kind of just the sound, right? And we just start adding a little bit of this guy. Which sometimes has a better effect than grabbing the cutoff and doing that. So depending on what situation you're in, try out both. Sometimes I like going for modulating this guy as opposed to the cutoff. Okay, that might be kind of a cool sound already. Yeah, it's definitely a cool bass sound. Okay. So we have something kind of like this. So maybe we also want to enhance this guy just a little bit and maybe, I don't know, put a square wave in that as well. So we can go to voicings and add a square here. But it's also going to be very low. So maybe we can go to +1 octave because it's already in the bass zone. So this -22. So if we brought it out here, gives it a little something. So maybe here we could put this on a macro, maybe, but the point is just to kind of just play around, see what we come up with. And if this is the case, so maybe let's go a little bit slower to, I don't know, let's say 102, and then go to our drums, turn our sequencer on, and maybe something in the synthwave 4 since we're kind of already going in here. And let's check out some of these. Always, where is it? Is it beat or big toms that I like? Okay, so now in this case, we're like, okay, we added drums. What can we do to make them stand out a little bit more? So we have stuff like that. Maybe we can add some reverb to that. So let's add some reverb here. maybe a good amount. See what else is in this loop. Just start adding reverb to that. Okay, the snare. We need some reverb on that guy. And then if we want to go to reverb, we can right click it. It's going to bring us right to it. So maybe for the pre-delay, I don't want to go as high as 50. Let's maybe bring that to 14 or 15. This guy as well probably needs a reverb. And might as well. And kind of just add some stuff here. And then, so, okay, now we're on a bass arp. So what I'd probably like to do to this guy is at the end here, maybe add a mini chain and then sync this to the bass drum, which is a really awesome thing to do. And depending on how much your mix is in here, you know, more pumping, less pumping, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so for this case, let's say maybe let's go and right click and add B as well. So, and I always like to have this play on here so we can kind of see what we're doing. So for on B, maybe we can select all of these and I don't know, bring this down by 4. That might be kind of cool. Or we can even enhance it as well. So now I'm kind of thinking, like, maybe we can add some other low-end bass to this, kind of do our traditional thing. So to bring out this square wave, let's add a new oscillator. Let's mute this guy for now. And with this guy, maybe we can add some voices here, bring down the panning. 4 voice, that's probably okay. And then let's go for another filter. And then oscillator 2, we're going to send this not filter 1, filter 2. Right? But let's go to the 24 and then turn this on. Also send this to the ARP. Just so on that -4, once we're kind of going down for semitones, we still have that nice rich low end to it. Which is going to enhance the main one here. And depending on how we mix these guys, or we can go to this guy, kind of give him a little bit of a higher pitch here, so we have the low end carry this. So we kind of have best of both worlds. And then maybe for C, let's go select all of these and maybe let's go -2. Let's see how that goes. Ooh, these last 4, maybe we can go back to 0. And then, oh, these are going up again, so maybe we kind of want to go back down. So maybe on this one, we can go back down to -4. That might be kind of cool. So back to -4. And then maybe for these last 2, we can kind of lead back into the 0. That might be interesting. That might be kind of an interesting bass line. I don't know. We can always do some rhythmic stuff. A little bit of release there. Yeah, so we have a quick little kind of synthwave-ish bass patch, kind of. Let's put these back here like that. And you kind of get the practice of that as well. So I guess we're going a little bit longer today, so let's do one last thing here. So we're going to reset our patch and then maybe play around a little bit with the shaper, because the shaper is really fun. So let's bring this down over here. So I almost always either add a little bit of saturation or wave shaping to it, or I end up with an acid patch. Either way, it's a good day. So we have our saw wave. So we can add a saw, and then maybe for the other one, I mean, we could go for 2 oscillators. We could add another here in the voicing. However, maybe for the second one, I'm going to go for a square. There's just something pleasing about the saw wave and the square wave together. Let's put this on an ARP here, and we're gonna start acid. All right, we're gonna do it. Start here, and then now we also, so we did an oscillator 1, we added the shaper here, but we also got to add on number 2. You know, we gotta be fair, and then bring this underneath the filter right here. It's just like, what is this? And sometimes it's also actually kind of fun to modulate this with the same thing from the filter. So we can grab our filter and then modulate this with a frequency, and then kind of bring this up as well. All right, so we got that here. So I'm kind of curious what the TB is going to sound like for this. I probably need to go a little bit faster. And let's add maybe some interesting drums. Let's go, I don't know, maybe something like EDM4, Chase Kid Turner sequencer on. Okay, so for this, okay, we got our drums. Let's mute this for now. And let's go maybe get some EQ. We probably don't need that much low end in this guy, so let's high pass this a little bit. Maybe some multi-band distortion. That might be kind of nice. Kind of just make it nasty. And that modulation there, that might be something interesting that we also want to do, you know? So we can think, how do we want to do it? Maybe within a mod envelope, we could, an LFO. Now just kind of get your brain kind of moving around, maybe do an LFO, something kind of like this here. Let's give it some depth. This sounds kind of cool. Or we can go to random. But something about predictability is kind of cool. Maybe a saw down. So it's working in tandem with the envelope as well. Might be kind of interesting. Or we can go for maybe something kind of like this, a little bit more of a shape there. Okay, so we're kind of getting somewhere here. Okay, so maybe we want to compress this guy a little bit. And then add maybe a little bit of dimension. And we also need to add some delays here as well. And again, let's do that 1/8, 1/8 here. And then maybe we can just, I don't know, go through here, maybe go through a couple ones of these. There's so many, that's the thing, there's so much stuff to go through that it's almost hard to go through it all, right? So let's see what we can pick from here. Some chords, synths. Oh man, there's so much stuff here. Yeah, there's a lot to go through in these ones. Man, melodic techno might be some interesting stuff here. Let's just try a couple of these. there's always a couple different things that you kind of want to, I guess, look out for or to modulate, right? So with the filter, we have obviously the filter cutoff, the envelope, and then we have our shape, or where exactly we want to put this here. Also the algorithm. Try some different filters here as well. The Anna 24 might be nice. So this might be also interesting as well if we did maybe something like mono legato, bring down our gate a little bit. And maybe slide these as well. See what that sounds like. Slide that as well. But yeah, that's kind of the whole process, right? So just kind of start making stuff, and you're going to figure out different patterns, different this and that and this and that. But yeah, before this gets way too long than it already is, every day just sit down, do some freeform practicing. Don't really go to make something specific, just kind of make something, and then you're going to remember those different things and like, okay, that's pretty cool, right? Like just that knob sounds awesome, right? So there's always that stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching. I know this one was kind of long. If you made it all the way to the end here, congratulations. Drop like a weird looking emoji or something. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.